I never thought I'd end up in a situation like this, pouring my heart out anonymously, because the weight of it all is just too much to carry alone. It started about 2 years ago when I moved to this small town after my last job fell through in the city. I was in my early 30s, burnt out from the corporate grind, and figured a quieter life might help me reset. I got a position at a local manufacturing plant as a supervisor. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me structure. That's where I met her. She worked in the office side of things, handling inventory and orders. Let's call her Emily. Not her real name, but it fits the way she carried herself, soft-spoken yet efficient. From the first day, she stood out. Not in a flashy way. She wasn't the type to turn heads with makeup or outfits. She had this natural poise, like someone who's comfortable in her own skin without trying. Her hair was usually tied back in a simple ponytail, and she'd wear practical clothes, jeans and button-ups that looked worn from use but always clean. We crossed paths during shift changes, and she'd give me a quick smile or nod, nothing more. At first, it was just professional courtesy. I asked about supply logs, and she'd explain them patiently, even when I fumbled through the new system. But then came the little conversations. One afternoon, during a rainstorm that knocked out power for an hour, we ended up stuck in the break room with a few others. Everyone else was on their phones, but she pulled out a paperback from her bag, a mystery novel, and started reading. I commented on it, saying I'd read the author's earlier work, and that sparked something. We talked about books for the rest of the downtime. She had this way of listening, really listening, tilting her head slightly, and asking questions that showed she cared about your opinion. It wasn't flirtatious. It was genuine interest, which made it all the more disarming. Over the next few months, those chats became routine. We'd grab coffee from the machine during breaks, sharing stories about our days. I learned she lived alone in a rented house on the edge of town, had a cat that she doted on like a child, and enjoyed hiking on weekends when the weather allowed. She didn't talk much about her past, no mentions of family or old relationships, but she'd open up about small things, like how she loved baking bread from scratch because it reminded her of simpler times. I shared, too, my failed attempts at gardening in my backyard, the way I missed the buzz of city life, but appreciated the stars at night here. It felt easy, natural, like we'd known each other longer than we had. I didn't realize my feelings were shifting until one evening shift. We were working late on a big order, just the two of us in the office after everyone else left. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the rain pattered against the windows. She was typing away, focused, and I caught myself staring, not at her looks, but at the way her brow furrowed in concentration, how she'd mutter to herself when something didn't add up. When we finished, she stretched and said, "Thanks for staying. I couldn't have done it without you." Her hand brushed mine accidentally as she handed me a stack of papers, and that touch lingered in my mind all night. I drove home in my mid-sized sedan, the wipers swishing rhythmically, replaying the moment. Was it nothing? Probably. But it stirred something in me, a warmth I hadn't felt in years. From there, I started noticing more. I'd find excuses to swing by her desk, offering help with tasks I knew she could handle alone. She'd laugh at my bad jokes, the kind that fell flat with others, and that made me feel seen. I began to imagine what life could be like beyond work, maybe inviting her to a casual dinner, walking together in the nearby park where families picnicked on Sundays. But I held back, telling myself it was too soon, that I didn't want to ruin the friendship we built. Still, the thoughts crept in during quiet moments, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily, wondering if she ever thought of me the same way. One weekend, I decided to test the waters subtly. There was a community fair in town, booths with homemade goods, games for kids, that sort of thing. I mentioned it casually at work, saying I might check it out. She lit up, saying she'd been meaning to go too, as she needed to pick up some local honey for her baking. "Maybe we'll run into each other," she said with a smile. My heart raced. It felt like an opening. That Saturday, I wandered the fairgrounds, the air thick with the smell of fried food and fresh-cut grass. I spotted her near a craft stall, browsing scarves. We ended up spending the afternoon together, sampling jams, watching a band play covers on a makeshift stage, even sharing a laugh when a kid's balloon popped nearby. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over the tents, we sat on a bench eating ice cream cones. She talked about how events like this made her feel connected to the town, something she'd craved after moving here a few years back. I opened up more than usual, admitting how isolated I'd felt in the city, chasing promotions that never satisfied. She nodded, her eyes meeting mine with understanding. "It's hard to find real connections," she said softly. "But when you do, it's worth holding on." My pulse quickened. Was she hinting at us? I almost said something then, but a group of kids ran by, distracting us, and the moment passed. That night, driving home with the windows down, the cool air rushing in, I convinced myself there was potential. Maybe this was the start of something real. But the next week at work, things felt the same, friendly, but not more. I brushed it off, figuring patience was key. Then came the twist that shook me. It was a Thursday, end of shift, and I overheard her on the phone in the hallway. She was laughing, saying, "I miss you too. Can't wait for the weekend." My stomach dropped. Who was she talking to? I didn't ask, but it gnawed at me. Later, as we wrapped up, she mentioned casually that a friend from out of town was visiting. Relief washed over me, just a friend. But as I walked to my car, I saw her pull out her phone again, texting with a smile that seemed brighter than usual. Something felt off, like there was more she wasn't saying. Little did I know, that friend was about to upend everything I thought I understood about her. The following days blurred into a mix of hope and doubt. After overhearing that phone call, I tried to play it cool, but my mind raced with possibilities. Was this friend really just platonic, or was I reading too much into her secrecy? I reminded myself that we'd only known each other a few months. She didn't owe me explanations. Still, the unrequited ache started to form, subtle at first, like a bruise you don't notice until you press on it. Work became my anchor and my torment. We'd collaborate on projects, her efficiency complementing my more hands-on approach. One morning we were in the storage room sorting through boxes of parts. The air was dusty, lit by a single bulb swinging gently from the ceiling. She reached for a high shelf, and I steadied the ladder for her, our hands close, but not touching. "You're always there when I need help," she said, climbing down with a grin. Comments like that fueled my imagination. I'd replay them at home, cooking simple meals like pasta from a box, wondering if she ate alone too. I decided to learn more about her interest to bridge the gap. She mentioned loving old movies, so I watched a few classics on my laptop, grainy black and white films about love and loss. The next day I brought it up, and her eyes sparkled as we discussed plot points during lunch in the cafeteria. The plastic trays clattered around us, coworkers chatting about weekend plans, but it felt like we were in our own bubble. She shared how those stories resonated with her because they captured the messiness of emotions, not the fairy tale endings. "Real life isn't scripted," she said, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. I nodded, feeling a pang. Was she warning me, or just philosophizing? As weeks passed, my feelings deepened into something I couldn't ignore. I'd find myself driving slower past her neighborhood on my way home, hoping to catch a glimpse of her house lights on. It wasn't stalking. It was just a detour that made the evenings less lonely. One evening, after a long day, I stopped at a diner for takeout. Greasy burgers and fries that I ate in front of the TV, watching reruns. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Hey, thanks for covering that report today. You're a lifesaver." I stared at it, heart thumping, crafting a reply that was casual but inviting. We texted more after that. Nothing romantic, just memes about work or recommendations for books. The community fair had planted a seed, so I suggested we hang out outside work. Casually over email I mentioned a local trail I'd heard was nice for walking. She replied enthusiastically, "Sounds great. I could use some fresh air." We met on a Sunday morning, the air crisp with autumn leaves crunching underfoot. She wore a fleece jacket and hiking boots, carrying a thermos of tea. We walked for hours talking about everything and nothing, her cat's antics, my attempts at fixing up my old house with DIY projects that often failed spectacularly. At one point, the path narrowed, and our arms brushed. She didn't pull away, and neither did I. We paused at a viewpoint, overlooking rolling hills dotted with trees turning red and gold. "This is peaceful," she murmured. I almost confessed then the words on my tongue, but fear held me back. What if it shattered our friendship? Back in town, we grabbed sandwiches from a food truck and ate in the park, sitting on a blanket she brought. Kids played nearby, their laughter echoing, and dogs chased frisbees. She opened up a bit more, mentioning how she'd moved here to escape a stressful job in a bigger city, similar to my story. "Sometimes you need a fresh start," she said, her voice tinged with something I couldn't place. I shared about my past relationship that ended amicably, but left me wary of vulnerability. She listened intently, her hand resting near mine on the blanket. As we packed up, she hugged me goodbye, a quick, friendly squeeze that sent electricity through me. Driving home, I felt buoyant, convinced this was progress. But doubt crept in again. She didn't text as much that week, citing busyness. At work, she seemed distracted, often staring at her screen with a furrowed brow. I asked if everything was okay, and she brushed it off with a smile. Just life stuff. I didn't press, but it ate at me. Then, one Friday, she mentioned her friend was visiting again. This time, she was more animated, planning to show them around town. Jealousy twisted in my gut, irrational but real. Who was this person? Why the vagueness? The twist came that weekend. I was running errands, picking up groceries at the market, bags of produce and canned goods rattling in my cart. As I loaded my car in the parking lot, I saw her across the way, laughing with someone. It was a man, tall and casually dressed, loading bags into her trunk. They looked comfortable, like old familiars. My heart sank. Was this the friend? I ducked behind my car, feeling foolish, watching as they drove off together in her compact car. That night, alone with a frozen dinner warming in the microwave, I spiraled. Texts from her popped up. "Had a great time today at the trail. Let's do it again." But now, it felt mocking. Who was he? A brother? An ex? The uncertainty gnawed deeper. Little did I realize, the real shock was yet to come. On Monday, she came into work beaming, showing off a photo on her phone to a coworker. I overheard, "He's finally moving here permanently." My world tilted. It wasn't just a visit. This friend was more, and she'd never mentioned him in that light. But as I approached her desk later, pretending nonchalance, she turned to me with excitement. "Guess what? My best friend from college is relocating. He's like a brother to me. We've been planning this for months." Relief flooded me, mixed with confusion. Best friend? Brother-like? Then why the secrecy? It hit me then. She trusted me enough to share now. But had I misread everything? As we chatted, her phone lit up with a call from him, and she answered warmly. Watching her, I felt a surge of hope again, but underneath, a new fear. Maybe my feelings were one-sided, and this brother was just the beginning of revelations that would force me to confront the truth. The revelation about her best friend moving to town should have eased my mind, but instead, it amplified the internal chaos. I told myself it was progress. She was opening up more, including me, in her personal news. Yet, the way she lit up talking about him stirred a quiet envy I couldn't shake. He was like a brother, she insisted. Someone she'd known since their early 20s, sharing inside jokes and history I could never match. At work, she'd mention him casually now, He's excited about the hiking trails here, or we used to binge-watch those old movies together. It made our shared interest feel less unique, like echoes of a bond she already had. I met him a couple of weeks later. His name wasn't important. He was just a friend in my mind. She invited a small group from work to a casual gathering at her place, a housewarming of sorts for him, though he was staying with her temporarily while apartment hunting. Her home was cozy, a small bungalow with mismatched furniture and bookshelves overflowing. The living room smelled of fresh baked cookies she'd made, and her cat curled up on the couch, eyeing us warily. There were about 6 of us, chatting over pizza boxes and soda cans scattered on the coffee table. He was easygoing, with a quick wit that had everyone laughing. He and she bantered like siblings, finishing each other's sentences about college mishaps. I tried to join in, sharing a story from my own past, but it fell a bit flat amid their rhythm. As the evening wore on, I found myself observing more than participating. How she'd pat his arm affectionately. How he'd tease her about her baking disasters. It wasn't romantic, that much was clear. But it highlighted what I craved, that effortless intimacy. When the group thinned out, I lingered, helping clean up. She thanked me, her eyes tired but grateful. It's nice having people over. Makes the house feel less empty. I almost asked about her living alone, but the friend walked in, carrying dishes, and the moment passed. From there, my routine shifted subtly. The 3 of us started hanging out occasionally. He was friendly, including me in plans like grabbing burgers after work or watching a game at a local bar. The bar had worn wooden stools and neon signs flickering, the hum of conversations blending with sports commentary on the TVs. He'd share stories of their shared past, and she'd laugh, her face softening in a way that twisted my heart. I began to see her through his eyes, loyal, resilient, someone who'd been through tough times but emerged kinder for it. One night, after a few drinks, he confided in me while she was in the restroom. She's had a rough go with relationships. Last one ended badly. Guy was controlling. She's sworn off dating for a while. My beer turned bitter in my mouth. So that's why the vagueness, the walls. It wasn't about me. It was her protecting herself. That knowledge should have deterred me, but it only deepened my affection. I saw her strength now, the quiet battles she fought. At work, I'd noticed the fatigue in her eyes on bad days, and I'd bring her coffee, black with 1 sugar, just how she liked it. "You're too good to me," she'd say, smiling faintly. Those moments sustained me, even as the unrequited nature gnawed. I'd lie awake at night, the clock ticking loudly in my quiet bedroom, analyzing every interaction. Did her lingering hugs mean more? Was her invitation to join her and the friend for a movie night a sign? Rising tension built as winter approached. Snow dusted the town, turning everything muted and introspective. We 3 became a unit of sorts, cooking group dinners at her place, where the kitchen steamed with pasta sauce simmering on the stove. I'd chop vegetables, stealing glances at her as she stirred, her ponytail swaying. The friend would play music from his phone, old rock tunes that got us all singing off-key. It was fun, but bittersweet. I felt like the third wheel in my own fantasy. One evening during a snowstorm that kept us indoors, things escalated emotionally. Power flickered, candles lit the room, casting shadows. We played board games, laughing until our sides hurt. As the night wound down, a friend crashed on the couch, leaving her and me in the kitchen washing dishes. The sink water ran warm, suds bubbling. "I'm glad you're here," she whispered. "You've become such a good friend." Friend. The word stung, but I pushed it aside. We talked deeper, about fears, dreams. She admitted feeling stuck sometimes, wondering if she'd ever find someone who truly understood her. My heart pounded. This was my chance. I opened my mouth to confess, but she continued. "That's why I'm so happy he's here. He gets me, you know?" Deflated, I nodded, drying a plate until it squeaked. The plot thickened when I discovered something unexpected. Rifling through my own past emails one night, I found an old message from a mutual acquaintance in the city. It mentioned her briefly. She'd dated someone there years ago, but it ended amid rumors of infidelity on his part. Nothing concrete, but it painted her caution in a new light. I didn't confront her. Instead, it fueled my determination to prove I was different, reliable. As holidays neared, the emotional depth intensified. She invited me to help decorate her tree, a fake one dusted with artificial snow. Strings of lights tangled in our hands, ornaments clinking. The friend was out, so it was just us. Christmas music played softly, and she shared memories of childhood holidays, her voice cracking once. I comforted her with a hug that lasted longer than friendly. Pulling back, our faces close, I felt the spark. But she stepped away, busying herself with tinsel. "Thanks for being here," she said again. That word, friend, implied. The rising action peaked at a New Year's gathering. Fireworks lit the sky over the town square, crowds bundled in coats. She and I stood side by side, the friend nearby, but chatting with others. As midnight struck, cheers erupted. She turned to me, eyes shining. "Happy New Year," she said, hugging me tightly. In that moment, emboldened by the champagne, I whispered, "I think I'm falling for you." She froze, pulling back with wide eyes. The twist wasn't rejection outright. Instead, she smiled sadly. "I care about you too, but there's something you don't know." Before I could ask, the friend approached, and she excused herself. That night, alone in my cold bed, her words echoed. What secret could change everything? The days after New Year's were a haze of awkwardness and introspection. Her response lingered like a half-finished sentence, leaving me replaying the moment under the fireworks. The noise, the chill air, her sad smile. At work, she was polite but distant, avoiding one-on-one time. We'd pass in the halls, exchanging brief hellos, but the easy banter was gone. The friend noticed too. He clapped me on the back one afternoon in the break room, saying, "She's been off lately. Give her space, she processes things her own way." I tried to respect that, focusing on my routines. Early mornings with coffee brewing in my kitchen, the steam rising as I stared out at the snow-covered yard. Work piled up with inventory audits, numbers blurring on my screen as my mind wandered. What was the something I didn't know? Was it a health issue? A past trauma deeper than I'd guessed? The uncertainty amplified my feelings, turning affection into obsession. I'd scroll through our old texts at night, the blue light illuminating my face, searching for clues I'd missed. A week later, she asked to talk. We met after shift in the empty parking lot, our breaths visible in the cold. She leaned against her car, arms crossed. "About New Year's, I'm flattered, really. You're a great guy." My stomach knotted. The but hung unspoken. She continued, "I've been dealing with some personal stuff. It's not you." She explained vaguely, family issues from her past, things that made trusting hard. No details, but her voice trembled, raw emotions surfacing. I offered support, saying I was there as a friend if nothing else. She nodded, tears glistening, and hugged me briefly before driving off. Relief mixed with frustration. It wasn't a no, but not a yes. Our dynamic shifted to tentative rebuilding. The friend moved into his own place, a small apartment downtown, and we resumed group hangs, though tension simmered. One evening at a casual dinner, pasta twirling on forks around her table, he mentioned dating apps casually. She laughed, saying she wasn't ready for that. "Maybe someday," she added, glancing at me fleetingly. Hope flickered, but doubt persisted. Character depth emerged in quiet moments. I confided in the friend over beers at the bar, the counter sticky under our elbows. He revealed more. She'd lost a parent young, leading to unstable relationships. She's scared of getting hurt again, he said. It humanized her, making my love feel more profound, wanting to be the one who proved not all connections end in pain. Rising action built through spring. Flowers bloomed in the park, and we started walking there again, just the two of us sometimes. Birds chirped overhead, paths winding through greening trees. Conversations turned introspective. She shared dreams of traveling someday, seeing mountains or beaches. I admitted my fears of stagnation, how moving here was an escape but not a solution. "You're braver than you think," she said one day, squeezing my hand briefly. That touch ignited hope anew. But unpredictability struck when she got sick. A bad flu that kept her home for a week. I dropped off soup and meds at her door, waving from the porch as she thanked me through the screen. The friend checked on her too, but she texted me more during recovery. "Your soup was a lifesaver. Miss our talks." It felt intimate, pulling me deeper. The plot twisted mid-spring during a work trip. We attended a regional conference a few hours away, staying overnight in a generic hotel with bland rooms and buzzing vending machines. Sessions dragged on supply chains, but evenings were free. We explored the area, grabbing dinner at a quiet restaurant, dim lights, cloth napkins. Over steak and wine, she opened up more. Her last relationship had been abusive emotionally, leaving scars. "I pushed people away after," she admitted. "I shared my own baggage, a string of shallow flings in the city that left me empty." "We both deserve better," I said. She agreed, her foot brushing mine under the table. "Was it accidental?" Back at the hotel, walking to our rooms, the hallway carpet muffling our steps, she paused at her door. "Thanks for listening. It means a lot." I leaned in, heart racing, and kissed her cheeks softly. She didn't pull away, but whispered, "Good night," closing the door gently. Elation and confusion warred inside me as I lay in my bed, the AC humming. The next morning she acted normal but warmer, linking arms as we walked to sessions. Hope soared. But on the drive back, radio playing softly, she dropped the bomb. "I think I need time alone to figure myself out." My grip tightened on the wheel. "What about us?" I asked. She sighed. "There isn't an usage yet. I'm sorry if I led you on." The rejection hit like whiplash, raw and unexpected. We drove in silence, the landscape blurring past. At home, emotions churned. Anger at myself for misreading signals, sorrow for her pain. I reflected in my journal, pages filling with scribbled thoughts under lamplight. This unrequited love wasn't dramatic. It was the slow erosion of hope through everyday nuances. Summer brought heat waves that made the air shimmer, mirroring my inner turmoil. After the conference, distance grew again. At work, we were cordial, but the spark dimmed. I'd see her laughing with coworkers in the break room, coffee mug in hand, and feel a pang, longing mixed with resignation. The friend tried mediating, inviting me to barbecues where smoke rose from the grill, burgers sizzling. "Give it time," he'd say, but his eyes held pity. I'd dove into self-improvement, joining a gym, weights clanging as sweat dripped, or reading psychology books on attachment styles. They explained her push-pull, fear of intimacy from past wounds. It helped intellectually, but emotionally, the ache persisted. Nights were hardest, sitting on my porch with a cold drink, stars twinkling overhead, wondering if she gazed at the same sky. A turning point came unexpectedly. She texted one evening, "Can we talk, in person?" We met at the park, benches warm from the day. Sun set in oranges and pinks, casting long shadows. She looked vulnerable, twisting a ring on her finger. "I've been thinking about what you said at New Year's, and the conference." My breath caught. She continued, "I do have feelings for you, but I'm terrified." Tears welled. She explained deeper. Therapy she'd started, unpacking trauma. "I don't want to hurt you while I'm healing." Same day. Relief flooded me. It wasn't unrequited after all. We talked for hours, fireflies blinking around us. No promises, but honesty. Let's take it slow, she suggested. I agreed, heart swelling. But life threw another curve. Weeks later, during a routine checkup, I learned of a health scare. Nothing fatal, but requiring surgery. Panic set in. I confided in her. She was there, driving me to appointments in her car, AC blasting. Waiting rooms with outdated magazines became our confessional, sharing fears, holding hands discreetly. Recovery at home she visited with meals, her cat sometimes tagging along in a carrier. We'd watch movies on my couch, her head on my shoulder. Intimacy grew organically, without pressure. One night, as rain drummed on the roof, she kissed me, soft, tentative. I'm ready to try, she whispered. The story didn't end in bliss. Reality isn't tidy. We dated cautiously, navigating bumps. Her therapy sessions bringing up insecurities, my impatience surfacing. Arguments happened like over canceled plans, voices raised in her kitchen. But we communicated, drawing from our depths. A final twist. The friend revealed he'd encouraged her, seeing our potential. You two fit, he said at a group dinner, clinking glasses. It felt full circle, unrequited, evolving into mutual. Reflecting now, it's the rawness that defines us. Plausible stumbles, psychological layers, life's unpredictability. Not a fairy tale, but real, compelling in its authenticity.